The Mystery of the Old Bentley. Mr. Edward Hale, an auto painter with an impeccable reputation, was known in London as a master craftsman sought after by collectors of rare cars. His workshop smelled of lacquer, oil, and slightly charred wood, the result of old restoration techniques. One day, he was brought a unique vehicle, a black 1929 Bentley. Magnificent car, he admired as he walked around it. Did it belong to an aristocrat? The client, the reserved Mr. Graves, answered evasively, "My grandfather left it. I'd like to restore its former glory." There was much work to be done. Hale set to the task, carefully dismantling the car. When he removed the upholstery panel from the back door, his fingers touched something hard. His heart pounded with anticipation. Carefully, he widened the opening and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside were a gold watch, rings, a chain, and several old coins. The valuables had clearly been hidden for decades. Pondering what to do, he went to the nearest pawn shop, deciding to sell just one item, the gold watch engraved with CD. The pawnbroker, examining it through a magnifying glass, suddenly turned pale. "Where did you find this?" he asked in a whisper. "In an old car," Hale replied casually. "Why?" The pawnbroker shook his head. "You'd do well to forget about this, mate. If that watch belongs to who I think it does, you're in danger." Hale didn't even have time to ask before the pawnbroker hastily stashed the watch away and told him to leave. Unwanted visitors. The next morning, as Hale was unlocking his workshop, an unpleasant surprise awaited him. 2 men in black coats. "You found something in that car," one of them said without introduction. He was tall and broad-shouldered. "A watch engraved with CD." "Maybe," Hale answered cautiously. "That watch could only belong to one man." The man's voice grew menacing. "Christopher Donovan." The name struck like thunder. Donovan, legendary head of a criminal empire that terrorized London in the 1930s. He vanished without a trace in 1938, along with his immense fortune. "You need to hand over everything you found in that car," the second man added, quiet but firm. "Immediately." Hale knew refusing could cost him his life. Escape and a revelation. As soon as the men left, Hale rushed inside, grabbed the pouch of valuables, and slipped out through the back door. Running several blocks, he reached the house of his friend, former Scotland Yard Inspector, Mr. Bartlett. After hearing Hale's story, Bartlett shook his head grimly. "You're in serious trouble, my friend. Donovan wasn't just a criminal. He was the architect of terror. People have been searching for his fortune for decades." "What should I do?" Hale asked, bewildered. Bartlett thought for a moment. "Give me one of the items, anyone. I'll investigate." Hale handed him the gold chain. Bartlett wrapped it in a handkerchief and left. Hours passed in agonizing anticipation. Finally, Bartlett returned. "Just as I suspected," he said, unfolding an old newspaper clipping. "Donovan didn't just disappear. Someone betrayed him, and that traitor was your client, Mr. Graves." "But how?" "Graves is the grandson of one of Donovan's closest associates. He must have known there was a hidden stash in the car but was too afraid to retrieve it himself. That's why he gave it to you." At that moment, a sharp knock came at the door. "They found me," Hale whispered. Bartlett grabbed his revolver and stepped forward. "Don't worry. They don't know Scotland Yard is aware of this now." The door swung open, and there she was, Cecilia Donovan, Hale's fiancée, the woman he was supposed to marry in 2 months. "You?" He could hardly believe his eyes. Cecilia stepped inside, glancing briefly at Bartlett's revolver. "Put the gun down, Inspector. I'm here to help." "Explain?" Hale's voice trembled. "I've always known someone betrayed my grandfather. There were family legends about his disappearance, but I never imagined we'd find the proof. Graves is a snake. He wanted the treasure but didn't know where to look. Now that he realizes you have the truth, you're in danger. What do you suggest?" Cecilia smiled. "Trust me. A clever retribution." The next day, an anonymous letter appeared in the newspapers revealing the truth about the old crime. It detailed how Graves had betrayed Christopher Donovan, stolen part of his fortune, and spent years searching for the rest. Cecilia ensured the letter reached Scotland Yard, and within a week, Graves was arrested. As for Edward and Cecilia, they moved to her father's small estate in Scotland, far from the noise of London and the shadows of the past. There, Edward restored classic cars, while Cecilia wrote a book about her legendary grandfather